In the last episode we removed the spark plugs and checked the general condition of the engine. Afterwards we managed to turn around the pistons after the bike stood still for 10 years. We then installed the battery with success and started compression testing the 4 cylinders. I noticed leakage on all of the cylinders, so we had to look up why this actually was. After ending the day, I reinstalled the spark plugs and I noticed cylinder 1 had thread damage on the spark plug. So I bought the compression tester from number 1 Moto online, and on the box it said that the socket to mount it inside the spark plug hole was a M12. So I looked at the thread damage and I saw that only the top, which I basically screwed in, that only that part was damaged. So I doubted if it was truly an M12 spec. So what I did is I bought this cool tool, as you can see right here. This is basically a tool which allows you to measure your threads, and let me show you. You can use it like this. You have your tool like your spark plug, and then you just hold it against it, and then you can see, if you put it in the light, if it's basically the same measurement that you need or that you have or whatever. So I bought this tool and I measured the socket from the tester itself connecting inside the bike, which I bought on number 1 Moto, and it wasn't metric wire. So they sell it as a metric wire, but it wasn't. For the people who don't know, you have 2 kinds of threads in the world. You have the first one, which is metric, which is used in Europe and on Japanese bikes, and you have the thread which is called Whitworth. It's a different kind. The difference is that Whitworth has 55 degrees angles on the threads, and metric has 60. So basically the angle from metric wires is a little bit more shaped like this, and on the American or US style they're a little bit sharper. So you don't really see it with the naked eye, but if you use the tool you will see the gap difference in between. So I used the tool and I noticed that the socket is Whitworth and that it's not metric. I used it and it basically damaged the thread while I fastened it into spec, and that caused the alloy head to have some kind of deformation, which led to thread damage later on. It sucks, but yeah, we have to solve the issue. So off screen I looked into how I could solve it. I asked some guys in some garages, and there's basically 2 ways how you can change it, and let me show you how you can solve the issue. So the first thing they advised me to do is buy a set like this. This is what they call a chaser set. It basically has different parts to restore all kinds of threads. Imagine you have a bolt with just regular threads. You can use this tool to basically file them a little bit and restore them, but this is just for normal bolts. You also have these ones, which are basically sharp inside, which you can also use to repair the thread like this. And then you have the different kinds to put inside of holes, and that are these ones, and these are what they call chasers. So I basically used this one inside of the hole. You just put it on top of the hole. You need to make certain that you put the chaser on perfectly vertical. If you do it under an angle, obviously you will damage the threads. Now there's big holes on the sides here, and that allows for any kind of debris to be taken with it, and basically this would restore the shape of your thread. Now this is made of metal, which is pretty strong, and the head of my engine, it's alloy, so it would do the job perfectly. So how the chasers work is basically that here you have the damaged hole. What you have to do is you have to put the chaser on top of it and align it perfectly straight. As you can see, the head of the chaser is not that long, and it's also flat below. So it's really important that you put it basically perfectly vertical in the hole. As you guys can see, I barely have any kind of room next to the cylinder head. Let me show you. As you can see, not on top and also not really on the side because I have these fins. So it's really hard to center it correctly. I did my best. I basically looked on top like this, and I looked at the alignment of all 4 of the spark plugs, which is basically all on the same line. I aligned the middle, as you can see, the middle of it exactly as I thought I should, and I chased it all the way through. So what happened basically is that yes, it took out some debris, but because of the deformation of the threads, it also cut out some of the thread itself. So after wanting to put the spark plug back in, I basically couldn't, and I had the same issue, which is basically the thread not being good enough for me to put in the spark plug. I looked at the hole, and this time the hole looked clear again, but it still didn't work. So these chasers did not help me. People do recommend them, but for me personally, it was not a success. The second thing you can use is what we call tabs. You have different kinds of tabs. This is basically a 2-step set, but so this shiny part, it has steps, and the steps basically go from very slight to full thread wires. And here it is the same, but the steps come a little bit faster. This is basically step 1, which goes from a little bit to harder. And this one is step 2, is basically the finishing step. So what I did is I bought the same size as my spark plug threads. I measured them with the tool. I'm going to measure everything from now on if I buy anything. They were exactly in spec. It was metric, so I wasn't scammed this time. And I used step 1, which basically is a little bit conically on the start, and I put it inside the bike as well. So what I did is I put the first one, so the one, you can see it clearly now, the first one, I put it in here. The advantage of a tab is because it's a little bit conic, the form is a little bit smaller in front than at the back. It fits in nicely in the hole, which is a lot easier basically to get it straight. And then I just run it through with some penetrating oil, as I also did with the chaser, by the way. I used penetrating oil on both of them. I ran it through, and it basically also cleared up the hole fully. Now the difference is that with this one, it really repaired the threads properly, but the first part where the socket damaged the thread, it still isn't fixed fully. So as you guys can see right now, I didn't do it on camera, I'm sorry, but that's just how it goes sometimes. As you can see now, I can just screw in spark plug 1 once again without any issue. So it's perfectly going inside. I can tighten it fully, but there's one small issue. I cannot show you on camera, but the spark plug hole, the first part on top has less threads. The threads are only 25% left, so they're mostly gone. And the lowest part is still perfect. So I was able to put the spark plug back in, but there's still an issue remaining. Whenever the cylinder pushes up and it basically compresses the air with the fuel and basically gives you a spark, which is how the engine works, you get a lot of compression, a lot of pressure on top of that cylinder. Now, if you have the spark plug, then the bottom part, the threads, they are perfect, they are undamaged, but on the top part we only have 25% left of them. So the chaser basically restored them a little, but it also took out the damaged parts which were loose, and yeah, the tab restored the rest and it did its job, but I lost some thread because it's alloy, it's really soft. So this is a problem because, as you guys know, we only have half of the thread for the full compression of the engine, and I don't want the spark plug to be able to be torn off because the forces are too much, because we only have half of the threads left. So in order to do this restoration in a good fashion way, I want this bike to really be restored. I like to do it as quality as possible. I have to restore the spark plug hole in a different way. So the third way for you to restore a spark plug hole is by using what they call a heli plug or a heli coil, and that is basically where you drill out the hole to a bigger size. You use threads, new threads on it, and you screw in a new plug, which basically has a M12, the size of the spark plug, and then you can just screw it back in. These kind of plugs are specially made for spark plugs, and they can resist a lot of heat, so they are a perfect fit. There's only one problem, and that's that I have to get the engine out, and let me show you why. So whenever I drill out the hole here on top to an M14, a lot of alloy, a lot of debris will fall inside to here, inside the cylinder on top of the piston. Whenever that I run the bike, all this debris will scratch the cylinder walls and will cause a lot of trouble. So this will permanently damage the engine. I don't want that. So what do I have to do? I have to drill the hole on a different way, because I don't want to take the risk of damaging a cylinder. Bike only has 20,000 kilometers. So what I have to do is I have to take out the top end, which basically has here 8 bolts, 4 on each side and 4, let me show you, on the other side, like this. What I have to do then is take out the top with the gasket, and as you can see, this is basically where 2 camshafts are located. These camshafts are coming together with a sprocket here in the middle with a chain. That chain goes down in the engine, and that basically drives on your cams, and that drives on the valves on top. So you have 2 camshafts, number 1, number 2, and you have 4 cylinders, and each cylinder has 4 valves, which basically means 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we have to take out the top end part, because the spark plugs, I don't know if you are able to see it, let me show you like this. The spark plugs themselves sit in this part. They go inside here. This part from here to here is the cylinder, but this, where it gets larger, is what they call the valve head, and this is the piece I have to remove. So I have to do a lot of work, quite a lot of work. I have to take out the engine in order for me to basically take off all the parts, because it's easy to take out this. I can probably do it, but in order for me to pull the valve head, there are really long pieces inside that support the engine vertically, and these are like really long studs, let's say, very long studs. I don't know if it's the right phrase in English, but that's how I call them right now. So let's go with it. So these long studs, they hold the cylinder in its place, they hold the valve head in its place. And in order for me to basically be able to pull this off, I need more clearance. As you can see, basically only my fist fits inside here, and this part alone is basically the part of my fist, and I don't have a lot of playroom. So the best way to do this job is by taking the engine out. So taking the engine out is what we're gonna do, and it's quite a big job. I did not anticipate this kind of work. At the start of the renovation project, I wanted to get the bike running and then start doing minor jobs like the brakes and the chain and paint and whatever, but we'll dive head in deep. That's why I'm filming this kind of stuff. So let's do it, guys. I have no idea how it will look like, if it will work. I've never done it before. I've never opened an engine before, so you will all see me struggle or see me succeed. I have no idea. bye.